Hello and welcome to Last Week in AWS. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn. Let's see what AWS has for us this time. This episode is brought to you by Ona, formerly Gitpod. Are you tired of agents that push your S3 bucket to the wrong AWS account or commit tax documents it mistook for JavaScript? Introducing Ona, where coding agents run in parallel in isolated sandboxes in your VPC, with private Amazon Bedrock model support that your corporate overlords might actually approve of. Launch agent fleets with workflows to bulk open pull requests to finally tackle that Java migration you started in 2019. Head to ona.com and get $200 of free credits using the code LASTWEEK in AWS. Beyond Pilots, a proven framework for scaling AI to production. They invented management consulting and slapped AI framework on it. The 5 Vs, or 2.5 Ws, are literally just have a plan, measure stuff, test it, deploy it, then fund it, which is groundbreaking advice that's been standard practice in several decades before S3 existed. New Amazon CloudWatch metrics to monitor EC2 instances exceeding I/O performance. Finally, metrics that tell you when you've been hitting invisible performance ceilings. The fact that these are free is AWS admitting that they should have existed years ago. I suspect that they didn't because how many customers have needlessly over-provisioned EBS volumes when it's the EC2 instance limit throttling them the entire time? Processing S3 objects at scale with AWS step functions, distributed map S3 prefix. Do it your damn self with step functions is apparently the backfill for the deprecated S3 object lambdas from this quarter's deprecation batch. What's the difference between AWS Parallel Cluster and AWS Parallel Computing Service? Wait, these are two different things? Who's minding the store over there? France Televisions with funny accents over the E's, prepared for 2024 Olympic Games with AWS Countdown Premium. France Televisions needed AWS handholding to broadcast the Olympics without melting down, which they're now selling as a premium service called Countdown. Wait, hang on, the Olympics prints money. Let's slap a premium tier onto that. Kinesis Data Streams now supports 10x larger record sizes. They spent years telling you to chunk your data. Now they're charging you the same per shard rate while you push 10x more through it. At least Lambda's 6 megabyte limit means you'll still hit arbitrary walls somewhere downstream. Amazon Document DB with MongoDB compatibility announces upgraded query planner that can run queues up to 10x faster. 10 years after MongoDB figured out query optimization, Amazon Basics MongoDB finally catches up and calls it an innovation. X-Ray SDKs / Daemon end of support and OpenTelemetry migration. They're deprecating X-Ray SDKs for OpenTelemetry, which is actually the right move because open standards beat vendor lock-in. But calling it a migration when you're giving customers 2 years to rewrite their instrumentation, that's just deprecation with better PR. Still, Google would give you a month if you're lucky. This episode is sponsored by my own company, the Duckbill Group. Having trouble with your AWS bill? Perhaps it's time to renegotiate a contract with them. Maybe you're just wondering how to predict what's going on in the wide world of AWS. Well, that's where the Duckbill Group comes in to help. Remember, you can't duck the Duckbill bill, which I am reliably informed by my business partner is absolutely not our motto. S3 adds conditional write functionality to copy operations. Finally, a feature that doesn't cost extra, presumably because AWS knows charging for basic write coordination would have triggered a congressional hearing. This should have shipped with S3 in 2006, but better late than never when you're trying to prevent your customers from building their own locking mechanisms on top of DynamoDB, which they all have already done, and are about to lose their minds when they see this feature. Introducing Lambda Event Source Mapping Tools in the AWS Serverless MCP server, an AI assistant to help configure Lambda Event Source mappings because apparently the existing documentation wasn't confusing enough. Event-driven architecture has gotten so Byzantine that they need LLMs to translate, I want to process Kafka events into actual working configs. At least someone's finally admitting this stuff is harder than it needs to be. Capacity Reservation Topology API for AI, ML, and HPC instance types. They admit their capacity reservations were a black box, so now they're giving you an API to see what you already paid for. I love that that is a separate API just to figure out if our expensive GPU clusters are sitting next to each other or are in different zip codes. Good God, it's a topology API. What in the... How to deploy a SQL Server failover cluster instance across 3 AZs using Storage Spaces Direct. They just published a 3,000-word tutorial on how to MacGyver SQL Server clustering across 3 AZs using Storage Spaces Direct because their actual managed services can't do it. When your workaround documentation needs a table of contents, maybe it's time to fix the product instead of teaching customers to build Rube Goldberg machines. Reduce CAPTCHAs for AI agents browsing the web with WebBot Auth Preview in Amazon Bedrock Agent Core Browser. I wonder who that's for, says AWS as they walk past the sign reading No AWS Allowed. It's worth noting this only works if website owners opt in, meaning you're still one policy change away from your agent staring at fire hydrant photos. Split cost allocation data for Amazon EKS supports Kubernetes labels. Finally, you can tag your way to understanding why your EKS bill looks like a phone number. 50 custom labels should be just enough rope to either organize your costs brilliantly or else hang yourself with tag sprawl. At least now you'll know which team to blame. And that's what happened last week in AWS. I'm Corey Quinn. Stick around.